हमें आज़ादी तो मिली है बट इज्जत कमाना अभी बाकी rather than just being an administrative guy going and getting resumes putting into the funnel. What is that you're doing to add value into the hiring process? First, earning trust with the hiring managers so that they can see that yeah, these guys are my strategic partners by having the open communication. Number two, when you're doing this for the organization through value lens, I think that's when the hiring teams will get confidence about you being someone who can add value into the hiring process. Number three, it is not just about sourcing profiles, right? It is about having a good understanding of the organization. I call it business acumen.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talented with me, Nikhil. And today is a very special episode because we have someone who has seen 360-degree talent acquisition from working with giants like Amazon to Yahoo to working with one of the best internet brands or product companies like CRED, Noon Academy, and even Belong, which was a very famous name in HR tech. Uh, we have someone who exemplifies what strategic partnership means for talent acquisition experts. And in my limited conversation with him, I personally have learned a lot, and I hope that all of you who are watching this episode learn a lot. And with that, John, welcome to Talented. And it's a pleasure to have you. And again, thank you for sparing so much time for this.
Nikhil, it's my pleasure. Thank you for calling me here, and I think it is very important and necessary that we share our learnings with our bigger fraternity, so that we, as talent acquisition professionals, make sure that we become strategic partners with the companies and the hiring managers.
So, John, talking about strategic partnership, you have seen a journey from Yahoo. I mean, from that time when Yahoo exists, Yahoo was still significant to Amazon and then product companies. So, what was your learning in terms of lessons as a talent acquisition expert in all those companies? If you could just quickly walk us through your experiences.
Sure. I'll take a step back. I wanted to talk about how I actually started my journey.
Sure, sure.
So after completing my engineering, right, I did my computer science in engineering, and after college, I started looking out for jobs. I attended a couple of interviews, and then I realized that I'm not really good in programming, and I do not have the capabilities to be a software engineer. That's when I wanted to pick up a job where my academics can come handy. So through someone in my network, I got to know about this talent acquisition space. I always had this opinion that you need a management degree to get into, because at that point in time, TA was under HR umbrella, right? So I always thought that you need to have a management degree, but somehow I got an opportunity to work for a consulting company where I've spent 5 years. So, and then I got a breakthrough with Yahoo, and in between, I started my own company, and then life was good to me and gave me a second opportunity to join Amazon. And then startup thing happened for me. So what I've seen from the beginning of my career to where we are today is a 360-degree shift of being a client-driven market to candidate-driven market till very recently. Now I think the industry is getting equalized. It is stakeholder-driven market, right? Because it was demand and then supply, and now it got equalized to be stakeholder-driven market on the needy basis. So I have seen this complete journey, and when I got into Yahoo after my consulting stint, that I think that was the time when I had an opportunity to work with hiring managers directly across the table, and to get a first-hand experience on the competency-based interview frameworks. And I think that was the first-hand experience that I got, and I was involved in debriefs, and also a bar raiser round, which was the concept which was booming at that time. So
What was Bar Raiser?
so I mean, it is the culture of recruitment of the candidate into the organization. So generally, in all the technical interviews, right, every panel member looks at the skill fitment of the talent into the team and into the organization. But bar raiser is a concept where you have specialized interview panel members who have spent decent time of amount in the organization, where they will not just look at your competency fitment into the teams that they're hiring, but they'll look at your overall fitment into the organization.
Is it like again, like I think the persona framework that we talked about the other day, it is very similar to that, or something different? The bar raiser.
I think it is more to do with the cultural fitment into the organization than the competencies. And
This happened in every organization, or this was
I think at Yahoo it was the times when it was booming, and then with from Yahoo to Amazon to Baba Jobs to Belong to Noon Academy and CRED, right? It was like it evolved during the time. But I think the first hand experience that I got on bar raiser interviews was with Yahoo.
and how was it?
I mean, it was a great experience, right? I mean, they were, I mean, qualified. You have to go through a training process to be a qualified bar raiser panel member.
How is that like? It's very interesting.
The prerequisite to be a qualified bar raiser panel member is that you should have spent good amount of time within the organization,
Of course, yeah.
right? And number two, you should be an outstanding interviewer,
Mm.
right? And then you have to be a cultural champion.
How do you judge if someone is an outstanding interviewer?
Depending on, so every interview is captured in a specific way that every interview is rated. So the interviewer calibration is done with number of high performers that he interviewed once they joined the organization.
Right. So on basis of historic data, that how did your how did your screening method work, and how did the people join? Got it.
Correct.
Yeah. Nice. Please carry on. You were talking about bar.
Amazon was a similar environment. In between, I started my own company where it was primarily a search agency to do lateral hiring. But I have burned my hands, diversifying business into multiple products. Right, one way back in 2012, I wanted to build a marketplace to connect farmers and end consumers. Right, it was too early for its times, and I come from a rural place in Andhra Pradesh, and I wanted to build a program to college students where we prep them to corporate jobs in the lines of Masai school these days. Now,
Got it.
I tried these way back in 2012. I burnt my hands for various reasons. And life was good, gave me a second opportunity to get into Amazon. When I joined Amazon, right, it was the same setup that we had in Yahoo. However, I was not enjoying my stint at Amazon because after being an entrepreneur, handling complex problems, I was just being a recruiter. So that's when startups happened to me. And it's been 8 years that I've been bent and broken in startups, but definitely into a better profession.
I mean, the lessons that you learned as an entrepreneur must have also shaped your talent acquisition acumen, like as a talent orchestrator, as you call yourself. What's the story behind that? Why do you call yourself a talent orchestrator?
Yeah, sure. It is primarily to do with, if you look at what an orchestrator does in a music band, right? He's not an expert in any of the music instruments which are played, neither a singer, right? What he does is he gets people on the stage, and he ensures that they are playing in sync.
Hmm.
That's what I did for different organizations. That I hired people with different functional expertise into the organization and ensure that they work as a team in sync so that the company's objectives are.
And being a co-founder myself, and when I hire at my own organization, I believe that we don't have these terms like bar raiser or all these terms, but it has I have grown a sense of appreciation for the role of a talent acquisition expert and a talent acquisition specialist for that matter, because now we understand that how critical that role is. And I feel the founder is the first talent acquisition expert by default for any organization, and the same has to be replicated. But still, unfortunately, we see that talent acquisition specialists or experts and recruiters have traditionally be considered as a transactional resource, as someone who will, just hire a bunch of people, and then when the push comes to shove, unfortunately, when the times are not right, they are the first ones to let go. So, what is your view about this image of a TA being a transactional commodity and not someone who is playing a role in the company's growth?
I think till very recently, right, in my early days of my career too, I think the recruitment was considered to be an administrative job where, these guys go get profiles from the market and put it into the interview process.
Mm.
Right? Hiring managers did not, I'm not making a generic statement, but I think this is more to do with how was recruitment was perceived in the market as an administrative job. Just get the profiles from the market, put it in the interview funnel. However, I see that the transition happening in the talent acquisition space, where with the companies being very much open to experiment, they have figured out ways how TA team can partner with the hiring managers in co-owning the responsibility of hiring.
Mm.
Right? I always believe that recruitment or hiring is a co-owned responsibility with the hiring manager, right? Where the talent acquisition team enables and drives the process. But a warm handshake with the hiring managers will definitely make this process successful.
And how does that warm handshake takes place? How does a talent acquisition person become a strategic partner in any organization?
So, it all starts with what is that you're adding value into the complete hiring process, right? Rather than just being an administrative guy going and getting resumes, putting into the funnel, right? What is that you're doing to add value into the hiring process? I think there are different ways that the talent acquisition team can work towards first earning trust with the hiring managers, so that they can see that, yeah, these guys are my strategic partners, right? How can you do that? Number one, by having the open communication with the hiring managers and the team, right? So I think what I'm made today is because of the values that I've learned from different organizations. And one of the great companies that I've worked with had one of the value that when you're in crisis, over communicate. Right? Proactive over communication with the hiring managers help us to win the confidence of the hiring managers so that we can be strategic. Number two, on a whole, you being a part of an organization, or you seen as a value champion, right? Or you someone who walks the talk of the values that the organization has, right? When you're doing this for the organization through value lens, I think that's when the hiring teams will get confidence about you being someone who can add value into the hiring process. Number three, right? These are mostly behavioral things. When it comes to your expertise being a talent acquisition, right? It is not just about sourcing profiles, right? It is about having a good understanding of the organization. I call it business acumen, right? And many things. Are you up to date on what is your monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue? Do you know what is the net promoter score of the organization? Do you know what is the sales revenue? Are you getting information about what is the net profit margin of the organization? Right? You have to have all these details. I call it I bucket it under business acumen. Right? These are very important that you have this information so that you can add value. We'll come to that. How can these information add value into the hiring process? Right. Number two, I was hearing to John Vastalika, who is the founder of the Recruiter Toolbox. Right. In one of the TED Talks, he was talking about, hey, your job role did not open the day when the hiring manager spoke to you and asked you to build the pipeline. Right? The job has begun, if it is, the job has begun when the hiring manager had a performance review with his team and there are some underperformers,
Mm.
and they have put them into the BIB process,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
right?
Mm.
The job for you is not the day hiring manager comes and tells you, let's start scouting. The job was created when the hiring manager did the performance reviews.
When some bottleneck occurred. Yeah.
Correct. So if you have an open communication with the hiring manager, if you can win his trust, you get these details that, hey, John, there might be a potential attrition in my team. I want you to start building the funnel for this particular role, right? He might not give you the all details about who is the underperformer and all that. But if you build the trust and have an open conversation with the hiring manager, and that's when, you will be able to build proactive hiring pipeline,
Mm.
right? And also at times, right, we're all humans. We are tend to make mistakes, right? At times when you hear negative feedback from the candidates, right, it is okay to go back and share with the hiring manager,
Mm.
right? I was spellbound when I joined CRED, and they have this process of writing RCAs.
What's the RCA?
So this is primarily on the learnings that they have in any process,
Okay. Okay.
right? Like our tech force write the RCAs, right?
I can you simplify RCS for our viewers what exactly it is?
In the process of in the process, so this is particularly when there is an incident happen. This is root cause analysis.
Oh, root cause analysis.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. So when there is an incident happen, right, you go deep dive analyzing what went wrong. Like the techies does the RCs, right? The PDs, the product guys does the RCs.
Mm.
So you deep dive, analyze what went wrong, right? But two, you take out learnings from that, and first analyze, and you also talk what was the problem statement, what was the impact,
Mm.
what did you do to mitigate the situation,
Yes. Yes.
what were the learnings, and what is that we need to do next so that it doesn't repeat.
Yes. Yes.
So this is generally done in the tech space, but at CRED, before even I joined, the recruitment team were writing RCAs on different situations, right? Be it offer decline or a candidate giving a negative feedback on the panel members' interview conversation.
Wow. And I don't think most of the companies do that. I think this is pretty new that I've heard that happen. That's correct.
So I think this was a learning for me at CRED, right? And how RCS can help us whenever you encounter.
Give us some example. This sounds very interesting. Like, was it an example of an incident that you analyzed and it really helped in some way or the other?
Let me think about it. I think one shot. So one of the example that I can think of is, that was my first offer at CRED. What I did is, there is a SOP document on how the offer should be rolled out, right? But what I did is, I asked some pay slips from a prospective candidate to roll out the offer as per the process. And he claimed that he was working in one organization, and he sent me the pay slips. I processed the offer, and the guy declined finally. He did not take up our offer, but he declined the offer. However, when and I was writing the RCA for this particular incident, there was an offer decline. And when I actually dived deep into analyzing what are the different steps which happened, right?
Hmm.
This guy manipulated his payslips.
Oh, he falsified them.
Yeah. So, he sent me a payslip screenshot, which is authentic. But what he did is he did not take the screenshot, which actually had the date on the payslip.
Got it. Got it.
So, what we figured out that when we did a quick reference check on the guy, he left that organization 3 months back,
Hmm.
and he claimed that he was working
Still a part of it.
still a part of the same company. So the learning from that is you have to get the documents up to date. Number one. Number two, because I just asked them to send me payslips, right? Send some previous month's payslips without the date, right? So then the SOP document was updated, saying that you have to get recent months salary slips.
Mm. Mm.
Right?
Fair.
One such example. Let's say another example is there was one of the candidate who was working with a big product enterprise internet company, right? He was offered and he eventually he declined the offer,
Mm.
right? So when we actually was analyzing the RCA, our learnings was uh, when the recruiter had this conversation with the candidate, the candidate raised this concern that he never worked with a very high growth stage startup like CRED.
Mm.
And he said he's unsure if this is the right opportunity for him or is he mentally prepared to take up this opportunity,
Mm.
right? And this notes was shared with the hiring manager,
Mm.
but hiring manager either ignored or he said he would be able to convince in the process.
Mm. Mm.
And eventually, he went through the interview process. He was offered. He took some time to look at the offer, analyze the offer, and eventually he declined. Right?
Mm.
And he declined the offer. That was the learning that we got. That when someone has raised red flags, before we even get into the interview process, it will be the responsibility of the hiring manager to talk and evaluate the guy if he's prepared to take up a role like this.
Mm. And because it is very so these RCS serves as templates of the mistakes which other people can avoid and talent acquisition team in general can learn from. And I think it's a very interesting concept. I mean, I yes, the product teams do that, but this is the first time I'm hearing TA teams also doing it. And I think this is a small step to that strategic partnership points that we were talking about. Another interesting thing when we were discussing last time was about how you reverse the sourcing cycle by creating candidate personas. And I think that was so important to becoming a strategic partner. Can you talk about how your team did that and that kind of an experience?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the problems, Edmund, when I joined CRED was the number of applicants which we were getting for a particular job. We were looking at funnel metrics, and the applicants were like 100 plus. Then we had one offer accepted out of those 100 plus. Then when we deep dive, right, all the profiles look similar, right? They have all the keywords. They come from similar backgrounds, right? Let's say a decent college, if not the tier one, decent college, people working in product startup companies, right? The same skill tech stack, right? Resumes were similar. So the recruiter was spending a lot of time in talking to the candidates, right? The hiring manager also looked at the profiles. He's also a human, right? He looks at the profile, okay, everything checks, right? And then we used to put them into the interview process. Let's say HackerRank was a savior for us because they used to go through online assessment, and we used to know that who cleared the online assessment. Then the interviews were going. However, to solve this problem of how can we figure out what kind of profile fits better into CRED, obviously it is not just me, all my TA team and the technology leaders, right? We did a quick research on how can we solve this problem. Then what we did is we looked at profiles. Number one, who cleared our bar and joined CRED. Number two, who cleared our bar but did not take up our offer. Number three, we also looked at outflux of CRED, companies which have hired talent from CRED for that job role, for that level, right? This is like doing a user research in product development.
Yeah.
Right? We looked at all these profiles, and then we figured out there are some patterns, similar patterns, not with respect to the college, not with respect to the experience or the tech stack, but some behavioral patterns. Right? What are those behavioral patterns? Number one, these folks did internship with similar set of companies. Right? Let's say, just for this easy of understanding, let's say we call it internet product companies. They did their internship in internet product companies. Number two, all the folks were super active, participating in coding challenges while they were in college. Right? Number three, most of the folks were open source contributors, which means they wrote about some of their open source contributions on the right. So we looked at these three criteria. Let's say this example is for an SD1. And then we have done an experiment for one particular hiring drive where we said we only process candidates who fits into this person. And our outcome from that hiring drive was exceptionally good when compared to the other events.
Wow.
And while presenting these profiles to the hiring managers, we have also given a report to the hiring manager on what percentile these profiles fit into the persona that we have. Better the percentile, better the chances that the guy clears her.
Of course. Nice. And did you do this for each and every role or just the tech roles?
This is what I was like managing the tech.
Nice. But I think any company should do it for multiple roles, because then I think this is again one thing, the evolved role of talent acquisition expert that you were talking about, that a recruiter now has to understand psychology, has to understand business, has to understand technology, has to understand what hiring manager actually needs. What about the candidate side? What about the understanding the candidate? How has that role evolved? And what are the things which a talent acquisition expert can do to understand a candidate side better?
So, I did another webinar on the same, right? How do you uncover the candidate aspirations? I think at an early stage of my career, I was a very transactional recruiter. Calling here, I asked them, hey, have you worked on Java? Yes. Okay. Are you looking out for a job? Yes. What is your current salary? This is what is your expected? What is your notice period? What is your current location? These were very transactional. And now I have actually personally, during my journey with startups, I think it started with Belong. I think Belong is a torchbearer who has defined the transition of talent acquisition space, according to me, right? Because that's when we were doing this recruiter notes. Recruiter notes is not just about the summary of candidate experience, which we eventually take, but how did it evolve in my journey is that I picked it from Belong, and when I was at CRED, right? I'll just give you an example of, let's say I'm hiring for an engineering manager, right? I take a quick summary from the candidate, and then I got few questions that I got from the hiring manager that they said, okay, you can deep dive into this, right? I'll give you some sample examples for an engineering manager, right? What was the one challenging problem statement that you have worked on, right? What was your contribution into that problem statement? Okay. What was your top 3 responsibilities being an engineering manager? Right? What was the business impact that the product that you have created has helped the company move its metrics on a positive side? Right? What was the scale at which your product that you have built was operating? What was it before? What was it now? Right? We talk about the latency, the throughput, number of microservices that they have built. And we also talk about what is the tech stack, right? And also dive in deep about why you had to take this tech stack. Checking about reasoning, right? If you ask me, do I know why someone picks up a Python and Java? I can give you some basic indicators, but for a junior recruiter, that might be difficult. But still, if you ask these questions and document that, right? This is not just taking summary, but diving deep into his responsibilities. Talk about being a people manager. How does he manage his team? Right? How frequently he does one-on-ones. Right? What is the growth opportunity that he has given to his team members?
How does he handle conflicts?
Correct. One interesting question: have you fired anyone? No.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, this is about the functional expertise of the guy. And then very interestingly, we have three particular areas that we touch upon. Number one, I call it a push.
Yes.
Right. When someone is looking for a job, it is not necessarily that he's only looking for growth opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. There will be few instances which happen in his current role which made him unhappy and acted as triggers to explore opportunities outside the current. It is very important to understand, right, what are those push factors, right? And number two, if someone is wanting to take up, after going through these triggers in his current organization, if he's wanting to choose his next organization, it is important to understand what are his non-negotiables, right? I call them as pull factor. Okay. Number three, just to check his pulse on his inclination to take up an opportunity with my company. I deep dive on his understanding about the organization that I'm working with. Call it a company factor. Right? These gives you indications, right? Whether the guy really thought about why is he wanting to look out for a job. Number two, what is he looking at in his next role? And number three, if he has done a quick research about the organization to check his inclination to get, right? And then there'll be other questions, right? We have to check the CTC, right? I mean, it is just that you can directly ask them, hey, what is your CTC? But if you can flip this statement, right? Hey, if at all, if the organization has to invest in your candidature, what do you think your expected ballpark number to get the expected compensation from the guy? And number two, right? How much time do you think the company has to wait once we roll out the offer? With notice period.
You were also talking something very interesting about their family background, and it's very counterintuitive, but that's a big factor.
Yeah. So I mean, this is where it comes, right? Let's say this comes in the push factor. Let's say he got a new baby girl, right? And he's spending his weekends and nights with his kid, right? Someone has to understand that you're working in a well-established organization where you have good work-life balance. And because you're wanting to grow in your career, you want to take up a startup. But in startup organization, hustling is different. Right? They run on very tight deadlines. Right? It is not just you as an individual who is going to get impacted because of this job change. Right? Your professional growth will get impacted. Number two, your financial growth will get impacted. These are the positive impacts, right? Number three, your number one, professionally. Number two, financially. Number three, your social stature will be on the bottom. Number four, what you have to understand is your family also gets impacted, right? Because when you get into a new environment, you have to ensure that you get accustomed to that environment. Now, if it is a 0 to 1 growth startup or a obviously growth company, then you have to hustle more than what you did being in big product enterprise organizations.
Absolutely. Wow. And I think this comes from your genuine compassion and empathy for the candidate, which is, I think, the most important skill for a talent acquisition expert.
Correct. And one follow-up question that I used to ask is, hey, I think some leader in CRED asked us to deep dive into this question. Hey, it's not CRED, right? What are the other organizations that you want to explore? So people give random names, Nikhil. You'll be surprised. So they're interviewing at CRED, which is a proper startup, and they're parallelly interviewing at Microsoft and Google, right?
Apples and oranges.
While I understand the kind of talent that we hire at CRED and Apple and Google are similar, but someone has to understand the hustle that you go through here is different from what you're doing there. Then when you actually, so this is also something that I picked up from Belong, right? When you actually become a candidate advisor, you tell him I said, do you know what you're trying to do?
Mm.
Right? One of the weirdest companies that someone was exploring that I heard of is someone is exploring Sabre,
Mm.
Google parallelly,
Mm.
right? And also he was also not a staff engineer where the competencies might be similar. But forget about the tech challenges, right?
Mm.
Get the kind of and he was interested in doing extra.
Mm.
I think you have to get your head right,
Mm.
right? Either you first figure out what is that you are wanting to do,
Mm.
or I can help you figure out what is that you are wanting to do.
Yes, yes. Again, yeah, very important role. And I think, how will this change? How will this image of a talent acquisition expert, like you are doing it, but you know, you probably that's the top 1%. What is How can the rest of talent acquisition experts think like that, and what will it take for them to change their image from being transactional to being partners, not just for the company but for the candidate also? Like, what will it take? Do you think that shift is happening?
It is definitely right. One, you have to be curious about your job role,
Yeah.
right? If you're not a curious guy, any job profile that you are in, right, you have to be curious about, hey, how can you be a problem solver being curious,
Mm.
right? You have seen these instances, then you learn. If you really do an RCA, like we did, then I will understand, ki, hey, where is it going wrong? How can I fix this? What is my learnings from this instance? So being curious is very important. And also, I think I have seen this recent change, Nikhil, in the industry, a positive change, where people are coming together as communities for the first time in the DS space,
Mm.
that we are helping each other to share our knowledge, to talk about our experiences, and also to share our learnings from each other.
What are some of the communities, John, that you would ask our viewers to be part of, or something they can learn from?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the Indian context, I'm fortunate to be part of few of the communities, right? The one recruitment route, the talent deck, and also there is a community with Thrice, and another community that I want your folks to be part of is Shape of Work. I think you get access to leaders from all great organizations where they're talking about different problems and they're sharing their experience. They're conducting some webinars to share their learnings. They're inviting experts from the industry to help recruiters be more strategic partners. I can give you two instances. One, at Recruitment Route, there was one session where where the Recruitment Route community invited a couple of uh, developers from good organizations to talk about what do they look at while
Mm.
they interview the tech talent.
Yeah.
Right?
Such an obvious thing, but it's such an important thing. Yeah.
Correct. And number two, at Talent Deck, last week, we have invited Sumant, who was part of building a talent brand for Gojek from the scratch in its early inception into India. I think he spoke about why talent branding is important for the TFOs.
Why is it important? Can you spend some time on talent branding?
I think you are the advocate of your organization, right?
Yes.
If you yourself you're not convinced to be a part of the organization, I'm sure you cannot convince the other guy,
Mm.
right? Talent branding is very important to organization because talent branding is not about free lunch, free snacks, or laptop is given early, right? It is mostly to talk about what, as an organization, what are the values you stand for, what is the culture of the organization, how this culture and values can help you shape up your growth for the future.
Mm. It is very important. And what are some recommendations, John, that you will give to our audience for them to grow as a talent acquisition expert, and also, as a professional in this field?
So, I mean, I think we spoke about this just to summarize, right? What I mean, from the functional competency, I want TA folks to be expertise in tech acumen,
Mm.
right? Business understanding. And number three, be the value champion of the organization.
Yeah.
And then the fourth and the foremost, be a good human being.
Very important.
Because we deal with people, right? And there is a reason why talent acquisition is a part of HR umbrella, right?
Yeah.
Because we are dealing with people. I mean, I can talk more about. So there was one report from Stack Overflow, right? What are the different things a prospective employer looks at while he is changing a job?
Yeah.
Right? Why engineers look at the tech stack, the growth opportunity, the company's growth, company's revenues. They also look at whether I'm working with good people.
Yeah.
They also look at how does this opportunity help me build my social persona.
Yeah.
Number three, how can it help me in my financial growth? Number four, how can it help me, have a better work life? Right? And it is very important to empathize with your stakeholders. And you need to be a good human being to empathize with others, like get into their shoes and understand, how can you solve for their problem. It's someone wanting to find a job versus someone wanting to hire.
Of course. Any good content, books, podcasts you have been following, John, in this?
I think from the West, I definitely follow Social Talent, right? And also, I'm a big fan of John Lastica. So, recruiting toolbox is something that I definitely follow. And personally, for my professional well-being, I have read all the books of Simon Sinek. Great fan. He always says starts with why. That is the conversation that I have, starting with why. And also, I would recommend work rules from Laszlo, where they have created a benchmark of building teams through culture lens. And another book that comes to my head is our Unacademy head of products, Deepak Singh. He wrote a book called Tech Simplified. Right? This is a book which was written to non-technical product managers and non-technical founders to understand what happens in technology. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great book. To be very honest, I have gifted this book to all my team members in the tech TA team at CRED.
I think that's a good gift. Yeah.
So, I mean, that is something, which acts as your Bible, because it is written in a very simple language. Any layman can understand what happens in the tech space.
Absolutely. And John, any last words, last hopeful notes for our tech community, for our TA community to end?
I think, Nikhil, this is what I always talk about, but I really hate, the recruitment folks getting impacted when the market conditions are not positive, right? Because they think that we are just administrative, transactional folks, and your jobs get impacted. I want TAT to be that strategic partner in the company's organization. My benchmark, I was recently talking to a friend, right? My benchmark of a great strategic TA where his KPIs also involves company's revenues,
Of course, of course.
right? I think, I don't know if I know any organization which has done that, where a recruiter KPI also have company's revenues, but it is very important. That's when you become a strategic.
Yes. No, I think these advices are very important, and I think small companies like ours can start doing it. Like us, like 10, 15, 20 people companies can start growing this culture and probably take it to that level. And I think I would like to end with that quote which you were saying from. And by the way, for our viewers, John has told me that quote 3, 4 times when we were taking the call, and he's a big movie buff. And John, if you could end with that quote, I think it will be.
And I picked it up from 83 movie, and
Yeah.
that has become my statement in the TA space. Okay, with the freedom that we got from the new age founders and the
Yes.
great leaders to experiment things in the recruitment space, I think हमें आज़ादी तो मिली है, but इज्जत कमाना अभी बाकी.
Yes. And people like you who are the flag bearers of this community. And also as a young founder myself and as the founder community, now, we have this fraternity starting to come together and the role is starting to evolve because talent is all that an early stage startup has to build any product. And the importance of the people who drive that is pretty immense. So I think this is very important advice to all the people. And any last word, John? How was your experience on the podcast?
I think it is great that we should do this more frequently.
Yes.
So that the fraternity learn from each other, right? And I seriously look forward for more such conversations with fellow peers from the industry and the great leaders.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, John. And thank you again for your time. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye.